Welcome to Theories About Things, where I pitch my theories on why some things are the way they are. Well, there's no other way to put it. This episode is going to be a controversial one. Today, we'll get into my theory on why we as customers hate tipping our delivery drivers, and also why we're completely wrong about it. So let's jump right into it. I'll start right up front by addressing some of the counter arguments that I know are going to come up and that I actually agree with. Yes, I agree. Tipping culture in the United States has gotten out of control. Furthermore, I do find our tipping standard a little strange how we tip based on price rather than the services received. For example, you can go to a family owned neighborhood restaurant one night and then a trendy steakhouse the next. Order the same items both nights, receive the same level of service and the same quantity of service, but your tip will be 3 times as much at the trendy steakhouse for the same services received just because the prices of the items are 3 times higher at the steakhouse. Also, yes, I've seen the many videos of delivery drivers aggressively confronting customers about what they feel are inadequate tips, and I fully agree that those delivery drivers should be in jail. If delivery drivers accept orders, they do so with the full knowledge of what they'd be paid, so they should provide the services that they agree to the best of their abilities. So with the housekeeping out of the way, my theory on why we as customers hate tipping our delivery drivers is because we don't realize how expensive of an endeavor the full service is. I don't mean that in an insulting way, by the way. There's no real reason for the average person to think about everything I'm about to lay out in this video when that person just wants to order a burrito on Uber Eats. Nonetheless, there's a lot that goes into making these delivery services possible, so when you really think about it, it all has to be paid for one way or another, and a big part of that happens to be tips. Also, to be clear, in this video, I'm only referring to app-based delivery services like Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, and Instacart, not the local pizzeria owner's 14-year-old son who delivers the pepperoni pizza you ordered over the phone. If you went around asking average delivery app customers what would be an appropriate charge to the customer for using the service, I would almost bet that around 7 out of 10 times the response would be a $2 service charge and a $2 tip should be enough. Now, let's go over how that probably isn't going to cover it. For every delivery app, that app first had to be built. This required funding that needs to be paid back with interest, whether that's to investors or creditors or both. Furthermore, these are complex apps when you really think about it. They connect 4 different parties for every order: the restaurant or business, the driver, the customer, and the paying institution like your credit card. They process sensitive information for all of these users. They process payments in and payments out. All of these apps integrate GPS and chat functions that are critical to the operation of the apps. Therefore, these apps need to have teams of engineers and other staff to maintain all of the technologies that make these systems work as they're processing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of orders worldwide for some apps every single day. When you as the customer make an order, you more than likely pay with your credit card. That financial institution charges a fee to the app to process that payment. Just like any other business, these apps have administrative staff like accountants, legal staff, a marketing department, human resources, etc. that keep the lights on, who also need to be paid. Customer service staff need to be paid to handle the countless issues that are sure to arise every single day in such a high volume business that again involves 4 different parties for every order. Also, just like any other business, these apps have to actually attempt to make a profit after all of this. The list goes on and on. We all just see the apps on our phone, but hardly do we take the time to think about the cost and effort behind it that allows it to be there. The number one complaint that customers have is that the fees on these apps are out of hand. We've all seen the memes on Instagram where someone puts a $13 butter chicken entree into their cart on one of these apps, and then they hit the checkout button, and all of a sudden, the order total is $108. There's no doubt the fees on these apps are hefty, but like I mentioned, this whole service is an expensive endeavor. It's almost human nature. We put an order in through our phone, and our minds only process what we immediately come into contact with. My burger just needs to get from the restaurant in town to my front door, and therefore, it shouldn't be that expensive. But in reality, there's a long and expensive path required to get your food there. Oh yeah, and on top of all of that, the driver needs to be paid. Delivery drivers in nearly every market are independent contractors. They don't work for the apps, they don't work for the restaurants, and they don't work for the customers. Therefore, they need to be paid an amount that makes it worth their time to deliver our food rather than use that time for anything else. Obviously, these apps can't hire drivers as in-house employees as the flow of orders is so irregular and sporadic that they'd be paying drivers when orders don't exist, making the service exponentially more expensive than it already is. On the opposite end, the apps also just can't add a mandatory delivery charge to every order that would satisfy every driver on top of the fees that cover all of the other costs that we just discussed, as that would balloon the total of every order and create a sticker shock that would wipe out half of the customers. So that just leaves a system where the drivers get paid by tips. The service only exists if all of the costs to provide this level of convenience are covered, and on top of that, the drivers are paid enough where they choose to deliver our food rather than pick up part-time jobs at AutoZone or something. You can now kind of see how a $2 fee and a $2 tip really isn't going to cover it. So what can be done about this? From the customer's perspective, customers have to confront the undeniable reality that these delivery apps are luxury services. I know it might not seem like it sometimes when the apps are free to download on your phone and they send you 6 discount codes a week, but make no mistake, these are luxury services. There was a time in the past when a whole family wouldn't be able to eat if someone didn't go out and hunt for the food. Now, you can be in bed and put an order in through your phone, and someone who's already done the grocery for you will prepare your entire meal, and someone else will go pick it up for you and deliver it straight to your door. In what world should that not come at a significant premium? Wouldn't it be fair to call it entitlement to expect a group of engineers and investors to build a system where you can be on the toilet and order a meal from a long list of restaurants all in one place, pay for it right there, and then have someone leave their house in their own car, using their own gas, and pick it up and bring it right to your door, and the bill comes just $4 more than if you went and got it yourself? If we're being honest with ourselves as customers, isn't it a little unreasonable to expect that? People who are on a tight budget should not be using these apps, just as they shouldn't go out and buy luxury cars or hire butlers. Being too lazy to pick up your own food when you're on a tight budget isn't a good enough excuse, nor is it financially responsible. People with big dispensable incomes who can afford to pay people as much or more than what would be considered reasonable to do a service that they don't want to do themselves are the only people who should be using these apps because they can afford to. These are the customers who make the concept work. Also for customers, it's worth considering if you would do your own order knowing the amount of money you'd receive for it in compensation. For food delivery apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash, a delivery driver receives between $2 and $4 per order in base pay, not including tips, for an order going a standard distance of around 5 to 10 miles, and this is from the fees that you see on your checkout screen. For a shopping app like Instacart, the base pay to shop, bag, and deliver to a similar distance is around $5 to $7, not including tips. Out of that same pay, the driver himself is responsible for gas, insurance, depreciation on his car, and his time. Say you're in the $2 tip is enough crowd. Would you leave your house to drive 8 miles to deliver your own food for $4 if it was offered to you as an independent contractor? Would you shop for 35 items, bag them, pay for them, and deliver them 8 miles for $7? If in place of a tip, the app charged the mandatory fee that paid the driver a satisfactory amount, an amount that you would do your own order for, would you still use the app? I will reiterate again. These apps are luxury services. They're expensive endeavors by their very nature and should be reserved for people who can afford them. From the driver's perspective, it only makes sense to take well-tipped orders. It's the only way the service benefits everyone that it's supposed to. And when drivers do accept orders, it's worthwhile to provide the best service possible. Presumably, drivers want the best tipping customers to have a positive perception of the apps so that they keep using them and they provide more opportunities to make money. And the best way to do that is to provide good service. From both the delivery driver and the customer's perspective, it might sound a little like a Hallmark card, but a little gratitude for the other might go a long way. Like I mentioned earlier, we live in a world now where you don't have to literally hunt for your next meal. Drivers should be thankful that there are people out there that would pay them well to go pick up their food for no other reason than they just don't want to do it themselves. On the flip side, customers should be incredibly grateful that a system was built that allows us to basically dream up something we feel like eating and have it show up to our door without having to do grocery or spend hours cooking and cleaning and doing dishes, or even worse, actually going out and hunting. So we should compensate well for it. Plus, just as a comparison, we go to restaurants and would easily tip $20 to $40 on our bill without even thinking about it. And while both work very hard, objectively speaking, delivery drivers do more in service than your average waiter. Quadruple that if they're shopping for your grocery. Yes, in theory, the tip at a restaurant may be shared among all staff, but nearly everyone tips based on their experience with their waiter. A waiter greets you, brings a few plates of food to your table, and asks if you're enjoying your meal a few times, all within the confines of the restaurant. A delivery driver drives to the restaurant of our choosing, oftentimes waits on our specific order to be ready, takes the blame for issues that are 99.9% of the time the fault of the restaurant, searches for parking in urban and suburban town centers, sits through traffic, sometimes treks through nasty weather, and secures our food during transportation when many times the restaurant's packing didn't make it easy. Delivery drivers do more services that replace things we'd have to do for ourselves than the average waiter does. That's just an objective fact. But we tip waiters $20+ without even thinking twice about it if we just like the way they spoke to us. And like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes just based on the prices of the items on the menu. While on the other side, we are radically against tipping delivery drivers at all. My verdict is that is just wrong. Well, we've reached the part of the video where I'd normally tell you to let me know what you think down in the comment section. But something tells me you're going to let me know either way on this one. But remember to also like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to hear me discuss some more interesting topics. See you in the next one.